Gawain and the Green Knight. Adaptation by Elaine L. Lindy. Part 1. At Camelot, in King Arthur's court, it was New Year's Day, and all the brave knights and valiant lords of the Round Table were sitting around with the king, jesting and making merry as brothers in a celebration that had already lasted 15 days. Lovely Guinevere took her place on the dais, a splendid throne adorned with silks and covered with a canopy of embroidered tapestries. With a cracking of trumpets, the first course began. Delicious dishes were rushed in, fine delicacies, fresh and plentiful, piled so high there was barely a spot on the tablecloth to set them down without tipping a wineglass or cup of beer. Just as the first platters were laid out, a gigantic horseman suddenly sprang through the doors. The stranger was strong and thickly made, yet despite his enormous size was handsomely featured, and his barrel chest and arrow to a waist worthily small. But what caused the knights to gape in astonishment was not the brawn or sheer size of the hulk that rode the horse, but that the colour of his hair, beard and clothes, as well as his very skin and that of his stallion as well, were all the same an earthly shade of green. And yet, never a more regal presence did green present, for the horseman's tunic, tightly tucked to his ribs, was draped over by fur-lined green cloak, fitted and sewn with ermine trim, while the creature's green hair and beard fanned out freely, enfolding his shoulders. It was clipped all around. The mane of his horse was likewise thick, showing the same hue of green, and was braided with many a golden knot, folded in with gold thread, as was the tail of the mount. The stranger held a large and menacing axe in one hand, but wore no breastplate, helmet, or indeed any armour at all, and in his other hand held a sprig of holly.
"Where is the governor of this group? Gladly I would speak with him."
To each knight sitting around the table he cast his eye and studied him up and down to see who was the knight of greatest renown. In stunned silence each guest stared at the creature, some silenced by sheer surprise, others edging closer, thinking him a phantom or perhaps a kind of fairy or wizard, while others held their tongues in polite deference to their king. Arthur stood, beholding this adventure as it stepped into the room, for he was never afraid, and said, "Wanderer, you are welcome here. Sit with us, tell us your story, and share with us what it is that you'd like."
"Nay, by all that is sacred, I am not here for idle chatter. I have come in search of the bravest knights of the land, for this round table I heard is where one can find the most valiant of the land. By this branch in my hand you must know that I come in peace. At home I have armour and helmets and shields and spears and other weapons that I dare say I wield with considerable skill. But if the knights here are as brave as other men tell, you will grant me the game that I ask by right."
King Arthur replied, "Courteous knight, if you crave battle with bare hands and no weapon of any kind, you will not fail to find a fight here."
"Nay, in faith, I have not come to fight bare-fisted with any of these beardless young men on this bench. Not a one of them is a match for me. No, I have come for another kind of game. If any in this house holds himself hardy enough to strike one stroke for another, I shall give him this axe as a gift, to handle as he likes, and I shall sit to bear the first blow. Know only that if I survive the first blow, I may return a stroke in kind 1 year and a day from now."
If the men were stunned before, now they were utterly speechless. The Green Knight arched his bushy green eyebrows and waved his head as he waited for one brave soul to step forward.
"What? Is this King Arthur's house? Hailed throughout the world! Where are your conquests and your boastful words? Is all the renown of the Round Table silenced by one speech when no fight is even involved?"
With this he laughed so loudly that King Arthur grimaced, and the blood shot for shame into his face. He turned to the Green Knight and said, "Now see here, there is none at this table that is aghast at your simple words. If it's folly you seek, then by heaven, it's folly you shall have. Hand me that axe, and I'll be the one to strike the first blow." The knight dismounted, gave the king his axe, and Arthur swung the weapon to familiarise himself with its weight. The knight, a full head taller than any in the hall, stroked his beard, seemingly not at all concerned. Gawain, who sat by the queen, rushed towards his uncle, the king. "I beseech you, sire, let this match be mine, for I think it is not seemingly for you, our king, to take this mockery to yourself. On these benches sit the finest knights of the land, while I hold a seat here more because you are my uncle, and that we share the same bloodline than because I have proved myself in battle. I dare say none among us is more weak and feeble-minded than I, and none would prove less a loss to the court should blood be spilled. So methinks it is proper that I am the one to put my life on the line for this nonsense, rather than you, my liege." The knights huddled together, and all agreed the same. It was best to move the challenge from the crown and give Gawain the game. So Arthur bid Gawain to come forward, and handed his nephew the axe. "Be certain to cut him once. If you do this truly and well, you need not concern yourself with whatever cut may have been planned for afterwards." Gawain approached the Green Knight, and the two of them repeated the terms of the deal so it was clear to all. The Green Knight added one condition, that when the year and a day approaches, Gawain must seek him himself. "That's fine by me, but where should I go? What land do you call your own?" "That's fine, but where should I go? Where is your place?"
If I survive your blow, I will tell you. And if I do not, well, it does not matter where I live.
And so the Green Knight knelt, tipping his head and holding aside with one hand the riot of green hair to expose his neck for the blow. With one fell stroke, Gawain's axe clove through the stranger's skin, through his very bone, and implanted on the wood floor. The head fell to the floor, to be sure. Yet the body of the Green Knight remained firm, as sturdy as if the head were still on it. Though the green head spurted blood, it mattered not to the body, that strode over to claim it, and holding the mess by the hair with one hand, the body grabbed hold of the horse's rein, stepping in the stirrup. The body strode aloft, and the head, still dangling, turned to Gawain, raised one eyebrow, and informed him that in 1 year and 1 day he could find him at the Green Chapel, and if he sought truthfully, he would not fail. And with that, the horseman galloped out of the hall. Arthur's heart was filled with wonderment, yet he let no semblance of this be seen. To his lady Guinevere he comforted her, before turning to Gawain. "Now, lad, hang up thine axe. It is hewn enough for today," before turning to his knights and informing them that the festivities were to be drawn to a close. Soon the full force of winter hit, blanketing the earth with ice and snow. Then, before long, the snow succumbed to the warm rains of spring and melted into high rivers. Flower blossoms covered the tree branches and dotted the ground, and the ground and the forests tipped green first at the edges, then throughout. Birds busied themselves with building nests to their own brilliant sounds of song. Before long, the solace of soft summer wafted in, when spent blossoms dropped and full-sized dark green leaves unfurled. Next came the cool winds of autumn, wild winds that wrestled day by day with the sun, launching leaves from each limb that spun to the ground, and all that was green turned grey, when droplets of ice once again frosted the ground. Gawain knew that the day of his anxious voyage was drawing near.